Hello everyone. So it is right at 10, so we're going to go ahead and get started. At this point, you should be hearing audio. Is everyone able to hear me? Okay, great. So welcome to the first session of this year's continuation of the Quick Learn series. My name is Tennille Fincham, and I'm a technology instructor with KUIT. With me today, I have Susie Johannes, also a technology instructor with KUIT. We'll be talking about OneDrive for Business and Office 365. Like the series last year, we will focus just on those specific topic areas. Also, look out for the additional Quick Learn series. These are typically going to be held around the lunch hour. This one's about an hour early, but typically around 10 to 11 for when these will start. These will be presentation style sessions and not hands-on. And after the session, I'll send out a follow-up email that includes the session recordings, any additional documentation or guides, and any questions or any answers to any outstanding questions. If you do have questions while we're in the session today, please pose those in the chat on the side, and Susie and I will work to answer those. Also, just to let you know, I think Susie put this in the chat as well, but just so I have another reminder, we are recording this session so that we can use it on our website to distribute after, and so that people who were unable to make it today will have the recording. If you haven't used Skype for Business before, or if you're new to using it, just a couple of tips to get you started on the right path and get your experience the best. First, maximize your window for the best viewing results, so you'll be able to see the most of my screen that I'm sharing. Also, I think you're already all muted, but if you're not, go ahead and mute your microphone. This helps to cut down on the feedback. And finally, to pose your questions in the chat or to see what questions have been asked, click on the chat message icon and you'll be able to ask your questions and see what other conversations are going on there. So for today's session, we'll first talk about OneDrive for Business. We'll talk about what is it, how do you access it, and then I'll demo how to start adding and sharing files. And then we'll also be talking about Office 365. Again, what is it, how to access it, and there we'll be talking about how to create and modify files. Before we get into either of those, however, I want to briefly talk about my community. So we get this question often where, is my community SharePoint? Is it OneDrive for Business? Or is it Office 365? And really the easiest answer to that is it's all of these things. So my community is run on SharePoint Online, but we're branding it as my community. It also encompasses OneDrive for Business and also has a portion of Office 365. The other part of this is that it's a powerful set of tools to start sharing information and collaborating with your team members or with other users at the university. And you do this through sites. So these sites provide places for you to share ideas, information, knowledge, documents, and communicate with others. You can access these through the browser or oftentimes through Office desktop software, which we'll see later today. When we're talking about these sites, the access is role-based, and you can start to control permissions on a number of different levels so that the right users have access to the right content. So I'm going to talk through just another little brief overview here, just so we kind of get our bearings as when we're talking about OneDrive for Business and Office 365. So as I mentioned, all the way at the top, we have My Community. Remember, this is run on SharePoint Online. Below that, when you first log in, you'll have immediate access to a couple of things. The first of which is your My Site, and then also community sites. The other part of this are team sites. So if you decide that your group or department needs a collaboration space, you can start to create team sites. Talking about your My Site first here, there's a couple of things, a few things that you have access to, and you can start sharing information about yourself. So first, your About Me page. You can update information about yourself, share a photo. You can create an optional blog. You also have access to a news feed. So this is a lot like Twitter or like Facebook, where you have a rolling feed of information from users that you follow or places that you follow. So you'll get updates there. This is also where your OneDrive for Business is located, and also where you can get access to Office 365. Next, the community sites. So again, this is something that you have immediate access to upon logging into My Community. The first of which is our My Community help page. And the second is you might have access to some early adopter sites that are open. When we talk about team sites, there are two different ones that you can create. There's one for team sites, so it's a template that you can use, and then another one for project sites. So depending on how you need to collaborate with other users, you should be able to request one of those sites. Any questions about My Community before we start talking about OneDrive or Office 365? Okay. So really quickly, I'm going to open up a poll here just to kind of get a feel for the audience here. So my first poll question is, have you used an online cloud-based storage solution before? So things like Google Drive, Box, Dropbox. Okay. Okay, great. So it looks like 3/4 of the room has. That's great. So when I talk about OneDrive for Business, you'll be familiar with some of the features because they're the same as they are in other online cloud-based storage solutions. So let's start talking about OneDrive here. With OneDrive in particular, you have up to 1 TB of personal online storage space. In addition to adding existing files to that terabyte of online storage space, you can create new files from directly within the interface. So you can use the Office web apps. You can use the Office web apps to create Word documents, Excel workbooks, PowerPoint files, and OneNote notebooks. You can also then share these files and folders with internal and external contacts. And I want to make just a quick note about that. Within OneDrive for Business, that is the only place within My Community that you can share externally right now. And just another note, you can share individual files, not entire folders. And sorry, I just realized I did not have my screen shared, so let me present that with you. Okay, so here's what I was just talking about. 1 TB of personal online storage space, those Office web apps that you can create, and sharing files with internal and external contacts. Again, only place within My Community that you can share externally. Just a few limitations with OneDrive for Business. There is currently a 20,000 item limit. So this includes not only your files, but also your folders. So if you have one folder, 4 files, you have 5 items that count against your 20,000 file or item limit. Also, there's a 2 GB limit per file that you upload. Just a couple of character limitations. One that I'm going to point out for sure is the very last one. It says can't contain these characters. If you're a PC user, you're already used to not being able to contain these characters and then file names. If you're a Mac user, this may be something new. So just something to think about when you're uploading files to OneDrive for Business. There's also a handful of invalid file types, probably not something that most of us save on a daily basis or come across on a daily basis, but just so you're aware, there are about a handful of invalid file types that cannot be uploaded to OneDrive for Business. So I'm at the demo portion of OneDrive for Business. Before I get started, are there any questions over any of the limitations or what OneDrive for Business is, anything like that? Are you just ready to see what it kind of looks like here? Okay. So to access OneDrive for Business, you will log in to mycommunity.ku.edu. So here I'm going to go to mycommunity.ku.edu. And you'll log in with your KU Online ID and password. Once you're within my community, you can access OneDrive in a couple of ways. The way that I often find myself getting to OneDrive is by clicking on the app launcher, or it sort of looks like a Rubik's Cube or a waffle. So click on the app launcher and then choose OneDrive. Next, you have a couple of ways that you can start to upload files into your OneDrive for Business storage space. The first of which is by clicking on Upload. This will allow you to browse your computer and select one or select multiple images. So I can select one, I can hold down Shift and select a couple in a series. Or another trick, if you hold down Control while you select, you can select photos that aren't necessarily right next to one another or files that aren't necessarily right next to one another. So I'm going to upload a couple of files here. So I've selected them. I'm just going to choose Open. You'll notice at the top bar, this is currently uploading 2 items. It also then gives me a uploaded 2 items status. And then within my OneDrive for Business account here, I can see the ones I just uploaded. So here's the desert photo I just did, and then I think I also did just this hydrangeas. Another way that you can start to add in files to OneDrive is by dragging and dropping. So I'm going to open the Windows Explorer here, browse to my files, and then you can drag and drop. So here I'm going to drag and drop this jellyfish photo in. Again, I should see the uploading one item at the top, and then it'll give me the progress of when that has finished as well. So that's uploading existing files. There is this other option here, the sync button. However, we're asking that people not use that. We're recommending not using that right now. We're still waiting on some updates from Microsoft to meet our specifications. So 2 ways to upload, clicking upload or dragging and dropping. If you start to use team sites or project sites within my community, you'll see the sync button as well. And same thing applies there. Upload just using upload or dragging and dropping and not using the sync file or the sync button. So I mentioned that in addition to storing existing files, you can also create brand new files from directly within the OneDrive for Business interface. You do that by clicking on New. So here, this is also where you can go to create folders to help you organize your files. Or you can select from one of the web apps. So here, I'm going to select Word document. This creates the document and we'll open it in Word Online. I'll be talking more about these tools a little bit later when we start to talk about Office 365. But just so you're aware here, now I can just start typing. What I want to talk about now is actually how to share this file with others. And then, like I said, we'll swing back around and we'll talk about all of the ins and outs of Office 365 and connecting that to the Office on your desktop. So to share the file, a couple of ways here. Since I'm within the document, I can click on Share up by my name. So I'm going to choose Share here. If I want to share the document internally, so with people at KU, you can just start typing their last name, comma, space, first name. So I'm going to share this document with Susie. I have two options when it comes to her rights for this document. By default, it's on a can edit, but I can switch that to a can view if she doesn't need to edit this document. I'm going to leave it at can edit. A couple of other things here. I'm going to go ahead and select show options because this tells me that an email invitation is going to be automatically sent. If you want to send one on your own, or oftentimes, Susie and I are right behind each other, so I can tell her that I've shared this document with her, you can deselect this. However, if you send a message out through my community, as is the default right here, something you may want to include that I like to include for all of my messages is please log into mycommunity.ku.edu first, then click on the link below. When you share internally with my community and it sends an email message with the link to the document, if your users are not currently logged into my community, they will actually hit this Office 365 login page. So here's an example of the photo of what that looks like. If you run across this Office 365 login page, that's okay. You can log in here, but you have to remember to enter your KU Online ID followed by @home.ku.edu. So in that case, what I usually do is tell people to log into my community first and then click on any shared links, and that way they don't have to remember the @home.ku.edu. So I like to send that in my messages when I share files from within the service. That's sharing internally. If I would like to share this with someone that is outside of the university, then the option here called Get a Link is where you want to go. So I'm going to choose Get a Link. And then in the drop down, I have a couple of options here. The ones for external users are the ones that have no sign-in required below them. So again, two options. I can generate a view link for those users, or I can generate an edit link. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and generate an edit link. It gives you that link that you can then copy and paste into an email and send out or distribute however you wish. And then at the bottom here is the set expiration. So this is nice. I can make it sort of a temporary link. If they only need access for 30 days to review this document, then I can set that expiration there. There is also the option to create a custom expiration. So if none of these meet your needs, you can set, maybe it's just 10 days they need access, and I can click save, and you'll have your expiration set. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share this document with Susie, and then I'm going to go back to my OneDrive for Business, and I'm going to show you where to find shared files and also a couple other ways to share them. So here I'm going to choose Share, and she should get an email from me saying that I've shared this with her. Okay, so to get back to my OneDrive for Business account, I can either click on the back button, or in this case, I can also just click on my name. So here I'm going to click on my name, and it sort of takes me back a step, which is back to my OneDrive for Business storage space. To find files that have been shared with you, you'll click on the Shared with Me portion here. So here, if I had not sent Susie an email, especially because we sit right next to one another, she would just look here for that shared file that I just shared with her. A couple of other links on the side here. You have Recent, and then you also have Recycle Bin. The Recycle Bin will store your information here for 30 days after you delete it. So it's not necessarily, poof, gone as soon as you delete it. It'll go to your Recycle Bin. It's there for 30 days for you to retrieve it if you need to. There are a couple of other ways that you can share, and just so you know, there's also this sharing column, and this will show you at a quick glance whether something is shared or whether only you have access, and will also show you who it's shared with. So here's that document I just created. It has a rather ununique name of document, but I can tell I just modified it 5 minutes ago, and it's shared with Susie and one more. So that one more is the external link that I provided. If I needed to change any of the sharing options, or if I wanted to share directly from my OneDrive for Business list here, you can click on the ellipses next to the document, and now I can choose share. This will open up that exact same window that we just saw, and you can share that way. Also, there's a couple of other options once you have a document selected. So here, I have this check marked. Up at the ribbon at the top here, you have a couple of other options. You can get a link really quickly for this to share it. You can click share from here as well. Again, that takes us back to that screen that we just saw when we shared with Susie. You can also see the version history, so lots of different things here. You can rename directly from here, so lots of things you can do. Now, as you start to create or select multiple documents, you may have less and less options. So if you want the most options for working with just one particular file, just select one, and you'll get all the options at the top. So just a wrap up here of what we covered with OneDrive for Business. We talked about creating new files directly from the interface. We also talked about uploading files and the two options, uploading button or by dragging and dropping. We talked about you can have access to this anywhere you have an internet connection. And just also to mention here, there is a mobile app for OneDrive for Business, so you can install that as well. There's also mobile apps for Office 365 that you can install and be able to view and edit your documents from there as well. One thing with the mobile devices, that's a place where if you use it, you'll need to sign in with your KU online ID followed by athome.ku.edu. So just a quick note there. We talked that within OneDrive for Business, you can share with people both external and internal to KU. And a couple of other features, you can view version history. You can co-author with others, of which I'll show when Susie and I open a document together with Office 365. And you can allow temporary access to files to vendors or other outside users. Just a quick note about the security. Since it's so easy to share within OneDrive for Business, no Category 1 data be stored there. So just a quick note about that. Before I move on to Office 365, are there any questions over anything that we've gone over with OneDrive for Business? So it looks like we have one question maybe coming in. So good question. What are the benefits to using OneDrive versus regular email? One big benefit is that it doesn't take up your storage within your email. So if you're sharing PowerPoint files back and forth, you don't have to worry about that taking up your 3 gigabytes of storage space or however much you're allotted within your email account currently.
I was going to say another benefit might be that when you use a link instead of an attachment, then you make sure that everyone's working off the latest version. Because, one person will have something and then they have to email it out to everybody, and it cuts down on email if you just have one link, and then whenever anyone's referencing that document, it's always the latest draft.
Any other questions about OneDrive? Possibly. Yes, you can. And Susie and I will show that two people can be in there sort of at the same time. And I'll talk about some of the things you should be aware of if there's multiple people sort of editing at the same time. Okay, so we're going to move on to Office 365. before we do, I have another poll. So let me pop that up here. Okay, so this poll is have you used Google Docs before? Okay, so it looks like we're a little bit mixed, almost half and half. If you've used Google Docs before, some of the functionality that we'll be talking about with Office 365 will be the same. And if you haven't used it before, then you'll be able to see what options you have when you're working with something like Office 365 or with Google Docs. So let me present my desktop so that we can start talking about Office 365. Okay, so again, just an overview. What is Office 365? Office 365 is an online cloud-based suite that includes Microsoft's popular programs, so things like Word documents, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote. But this isn't the only thing that Office 365 is. This is also the way that you can install Microsoft Office on your personal home machine. So when using with Office 365, you can actually install the entire Office suite on up to 5 devices for home use. So again, this is for your personal home machines. If you need Office installed on your work machines, be sure to talk to your local tech support staff. But for your home machines, you can install that through Office 365, and I'll show you where to find that in the My Community interface. Again, how to access it. This will be accessed through My Community. And I just want to make a note here, you're not limited to using the online version of Office 365 when you're at work. You still should have access to the entire Office suite. And when you create documents within either platform, you can view and edit in the other. Okay, so I'm going to open the browser here. First and foremost, if you're interested in the Office 365 from home, in order to get to that, you'll click on Office 365. So right next to the app launcher, Office 365. I believe it has 2016 for PC and 2016 for Mac for you to install there. So this is where you'll get that for your home use. Office 365 within My Community, you can get there and use the web apps in a couple of ways. The first way is that you can click on this app launcher and it gives you access to Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote. I have a couple of other things here because I'm testing stuff out, but you should have Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote. When you create a Word document or an Excel worksheet from here, it will be saved to your OneDrive for Business account. So that's where it goes once you create it. The other way that you can get to those is by clicking on OneDrive, and just as we saw earlier, we can select New and select one of those files. So I already created one when we were talking about OneDrive, so I'm going to go ahead and open this document that I have shared with Susie. So I'm going to select Document here. When you open from within OneDrive for Business, this will open your document in preview mode. So you'll just need to select a way in which you want to edit. And to do so, you'll choose Edit Document. And here you can choose Edit in Word. This will actually open up the document in the full desktop version of Microsoft Word, so the one that's on your computer. Or you can choose Edit in Word Online, which is the one we're going to start out with, and then I'll show you how to open it and the full functionality from there. So Edit in Word Online. Here I want to point out several things. The first of which is you can rename your document really easily by clicking on the existing file name. So here mine is that really popular, document name here. So it looks like you can only do that when you're the only person editing the document, so keep that in mind. The other thing here is that there is no save button. Instead, your changes are saved automatically. So up here at the top, and we'll see this when we start to type some things, it'll either say saved or as you're typing, it'll say saving. Also, since I've shared this document with Susie, I can actually see that she is editing the document currently with me, and I can see that underneath my name in the corner here. So here, Susie is also editing. She also has this color icon next to her, and then down here in the actual body of the text, you'll start to see these colored flags, so you can tell exactly where someone's cursor is and where they may be working. A couple of other notes about working in the online version. It's sort of a pared down version of Office, of Word and all the tools, so you don't have as much functionality. One of the really big things that you don't have within Word, for example, is track changes. So you can still turn on track changes, but you have to do so within the full version of the tool. So here, if I'm in the online version and I need to track those changes, I can choose Open in Word, and this will open in the full version of Word that I have on my desktop. So I'm going to choose OK here. And now that's in the full version of Word. Now, if I wanted to turn on track changes, I would go to Review, Track Changes, and turn those on. And then I would hit Save. So the important thing when you're working in the full version, and if someone else is working in the online version, is that in the full version you'll need to save often so that you can see any changes that other users have made. I can also see down here at the bottom if there are multiple people working with me. So here it says 2 authors are editing, and I can quickly jump to see that both Susie and I are editing. From the full version of Word, you can actually have access to Skype if you have that up and running. So I have Skype for Business open. So here, I could send Susie an instant message directly from within the document. So that's when you're in the full version of Word. Okay, so I've turned on track changes. I'm just going to make a couple of changes here and then show you how you will see that in the full version. So these are, my changes and favorite things. And then we'll just list out some gobbledygook. Okay, again, I want to make sure I save. Now, this is going to save back up to my OneDrive for Business account. You'll notice that there's sort of a refresh button above the save, and that's because it's going to be saving online to my OneDrive for Business account. In order to do that, you must have an internet connection. So here, I'm going to choose Save. Also notice that I have a couple of other changes now that I've pressed Save, and it tells me that there are changes made by others. So I'm going to click OK, and I can quickly see what information was added by Susie. So I see my information in track changes in red, and I see Susie's information that she's added in track changes in green. Okay, I'm going to do save one last time, and then I'm going to close the document here. And I'm going to close this. This should refresh. And now in Word Online, I can see the changes too. However, notice that I'm not able to see the markup from track changes. That is as designed. In order to see or turn on track changes, you'll have to open it up in the full version of Word. So just that note there. I'm going to pause there for just a couple of minutes. Are there any questions over anything within Office 365? Are there any questions over anything that we've gone over so far today? Has anyone currently been using OneDrive for Business or Office 365, either like as a team or personally? Awesome. So, Michelle, then you shared those out with your classmates from OneDrive? Great. Yeah, that makes sense, Brandon. That's good. For those of you that have used it, have you found that it's been pretty intuitive or more friendly than Hawk Drive? Oh, that makes sense, Brandon. There's saying that there is no specific subject line that you can create. Gotcha. Okay, well, thanks for your feedback on that. It's always good to hear how other people have started to use it and what other people think of the services. Just as a quick wrap up here for Office 365, I just wanted to talk about, again, just some of the differences between the online version and the desktop version of the tools. So online versions are the more simplified versions. They open in preview mode. Your changes are saved automatically. You can co-author with others. However, you can't turn on track changes in Word documents, and you can't see those markups made by track changes if you're using the online version. And you also must have an internet connection to make the changes. When we're talking about the full version of the tool, you get the full functionality. Your changes must be saved manually. Also, you must have an internet connection if you want to save back to OneDrive or if you're using document libraries within team sites. You can co-author with others within the full version of the tools when you store those in OneDrive for Business or within document libraries on team and project sites. You have to go here to turn on track changes, and you have to go to the desktop versions in order to be able to see any markups that have been made from those track changes. So if you're ready to get started after today's session, just some things you can do right now. First, you can log into mycommunity.ku.edu. You can start to use OneDrive for Business to store and share your personal files. If you're interested in the co-authoring features, you can talk with a coworker and see if they're interested in testing out those features with you, just so you get familiar with how that works. If you're interested in those team or project sites that I mentioned, so places for you to collaborate as a department or as a project team, talk with your team members and also your local IT support staff to see if creating one of these sites is right for you and your use case. Something else here, And this is sort of something new that we're adding. Starting in April, I will be offering a OneNote 2013 Essentials course. So OneNote is the digital note-taking software from Microsoft. If you're used to using something like Evernote, this is comparable to that. So if you're already familiar with Evernote and you kind of want to just start seeing what OneNote is all about, you can create a notebooks folder in your OneDrive for Business, and then you can create a new OneNote notebook. And these are really helpful for taking meeting notes, keeping track of your personal projects and tasks, things like that. If you're interested in learning more about OneNote, as I mentioned, that workshop will be starting in mid to late April, and I'll send you, in the follow-up email, I'll send you information about where to go to see when those courses will be. A few other training opportunities that we have here within IT from our technology instruction department. We provide departmental training. So if you're interested in having us speak about this topic or any other topic surrounding the supported technologies, let us know. We'd be happy to come to speak to your department. You can email training@ku.edu and one of our instructors will get back with you. We also have the open workshops that I just mentioned and also the Quick Learn webinar series. So if you're interested in signing up for any of those classes, those are all listed at workshops.ku.edu. And finally, if you'd like to meet just one-on-one, we do provide desk side coaching sessions, and I'll send all this information out in the follow-up email as well. We have a few more upcoming Quick Learn topics. So Wednesday, April 6th, we'll be talking about Adobe Creative Cloud's Big Three. So talking about InDesign, Illustrator, and Photoshop. On Wednesday, April 20th, we will be presenting on task management using Outlook 2013. So talking about some of those features within there. And Wednesday, May 4th, we will do a deep dive into document libraries within my community. So with that, that leads me to the final slide here. Once the recording has been processed, I'll be sending out a follow-up email to everyone that attended today and anyone who signed up for the session. I'll include a link to the recording, any additional learning resources, and if there are any outstanding questions, I'll provide answers to those as well. So are there any last questions before we close out today's session? All right, well, thank you all for your time today, and I will be sending out the follow-up email later today or early tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.